Jack. Jack's in the clear. Jack has only the fullback to beat. Throws the dummy. Tries to link up with Ribot. Ribot for the corner. Ribot scores. Australia lead.
By the time you're starting to think about retirement from footy, you obviously still wanted to be involved in the game to some capacity. What opportunities came along?
I think when I got to probably 28, you start to think about that life after football because it wasn't a full-time job. I was asked to be the state coaching and development officer. So, and there was Wally Lewis and Wayne Bennett. So it was a team of three.
And you were their boss?
Yeah, well, technically I was, but I wasn't their boss.
Not really.
I can assure you of that.
When did you first hear the whispers of something about a Brisbane team, potentially something called the Brisbane Broncos?
That was interesting. Darryl Vanderveld was the first person to bring it up to me. He rang me on a Friday and he said, would you have a think about this and whether you'd be interested in being involved? I thought, well, this has got some legs. And then it sort of took its own momentum when the media got onto it. We organised a meeting and they said, would you come and join our consortium for the bid? And I said, yeah, it just depends on what level, what do you want me to do? And they said, we'd like you to be the general manager. So I've gone, wow, this is a real opportunity. I still get a few tingles from it. You know, just a moment you go, imagine 2 years prior to that or thereabouts, Wally's playing with Wally, he's throwing me balls and Gene and Wally and all that, and all of a sudden I'm their boss.
It's life-changing. I mean, you talk about the early inception, and I think the Broncos became a team for all of Queensland. Yeah. Outside Origin, everyone wanted to be a Brisbane Bronco.
Yeah. One thing I learned very early in the piece, while you're sitting there as an owner or a managing director of a company, and something as emotional as a football team, it's really owned by the people. Don't kid yourself. If you don't get it right, they won't keep supporting, and nor should they keep supporting you if you don't give them what they want. But they were vested into that to say, we're going to invest in the people. And that's the community. To get those pathways and get the message out there, we are Queensland's team. We want to do something really special. So they gave me a handshake on a 5-year plan. We had to make the semi-finals in 3 years. We had to be in the grand final within 5, and they obviously wanted to win. So that was the deal.
So Wayne was in place?
At first he was a bit hard to get. Paul Morgan packed up his suitcase. He flew into Canberra, knocked on Wayne's door, and Wayne answers the door and says to Porky, what are you doing with the suitcase here? He said, I just brought it because I'm not leaving till you sign. So, and that was one of their best decisions they ever made, was getting him there. And as Paul said at the time, that you keep telling me he's the best coach, I said, I think he will be our best coach.
So by the time your very first game arrives in 1988 and the Broncos blow Manly away.
Here's Lewis. Lewis still going. Lewis still going. Lewis is going to score a try. Yes, he is. Lewis from the dummy half and away he went.
Do you remember that day? Do you remember the response from that performance?
Yeah, it was a very nervous day. The way it all came together, and Wally and all that, we had too many good players at the time. They just gelled on the day, and it ended up being one of the great days.
And then 92, 93, simply the best years.
Yeah.
John Ribot, congratulations.
Thanks, Ray. It's been a fantastic day for the club, so we're going to do a bit of partying over the next few days.
What was it like to be part of the Brisbane Broncos juggernaut through, I think, is one of the most glory times that we have had to celebrate in the game?
The chemistry of that time was just, from a Broncos point of view, was sensational. And I know winning the grand final and coming back into Brisbane, and the crowd that was at Brisbane, there would have been 20,000 people plus at the airport. Then we went back to Fulchers Road where we trained. The whole ground was just full of people. And I think at one stage they surfed Alfie across from the change rooms to the clubhouse, which is 150 metres, but the people just lifted him across.
The high ball from Alan Langer across the face of goal. It's still allowed to bounce, and that's going to be a try. Alan Langer followed it through and scores the simplest try you'll ever see.
Signing Alfie, signing the Walters brothers, did you know at the time those were going to be hallmarks for the game and hallmarks for the Broncos?
Signing Alfie was probably our 4th or 5th choice. His manager at the time was Tom Rodonicus. Tommy loved Alfie, so he shopped him down to, I think, St George, Illawarra. West might have had a look at him. They all just came back and said, the bloke's too small. He just won't make it. So Tommy rang me and said, John, this kid can play. Don't worry about the size of the body. He's something special. Once you got into and saw what he's all about, you got, hang on, we've got a good little player here.
Langer. Well, he looked like he might. He's still dancing and weaving. The little grubber kick through. Lewis is there. Lewis falls on it. And it's a try.
What were you most proud of from your time at the Brisbane Broncos?
Cyril Cole had a great saying. He said, look, I can't promise you that you'll end up playing for Australia or Queensland or even their first grade side at the Broncos, but I can promise you I'll make your son a better person. And I think that standard's still there, that, and Kevy understands the DNA, if I call it, but it's a good place. And I use the analogy, something, you walk in the clubs, you can smell that they're good.
So after the Broncos, we're sort of getting in towards Super League territory. In a perfect world, what was the concept of Super League? What could it have been? And what's the utopia that rugby league was looking for at that time?
The landscape of sport was about to explode, and history will show that that's what happened with pay TV. So we had to create an environment so to go with that momentum that was going to come, that we could take advantage of it.
Once Super League started to turn the cogs, the scramble for signatures was on. It was almost like an arms race. And I can imagine the big names that you guys wanted to target. And if we use Alfie as an example, in terms of numbers, like what would he have been getting as opposed to what Super League could offer? Alfie
won't mind me mentioning this, I don't think. His numbers would have been around 120, 25,000 from the club at the time. He got 600,000 in Super League, and he got good money as a loyalty payment up front.
That's life-changing money.
It's life-changing.
Yep.
It was just crazy. We did the contract with Rupert to say, is he going to do this? We had to do a presentation. I was a bit nervous to doing that. I'd never done that to, especially Rupert Murdoch. What am I doing here? Our budget at the time was 68 million to bring a competition together. Back then, that was a lot of money. Football teams were turning over probably 4 or 5 million. So he said, I just got to just hold you up here. I think the 68 you're wrong with, it's going to hit 100. And I go, there goes my job. I go, I missed the budget by $32 million. But he then said, I think this is going to be really exciting, and I look forward to doing this with you. And we got up and shook hands, and he said, I wish you all the best. 3 months, or I think it was probably 3 or 4 months later, we'd spent close to 500 million. So it was serious stuff.
And yet really the rhetoric was around treachery and greed and loyalties being tested and friendships and clubs all at war with one another. Did you feel like the bad guys?
Well, we were perceived to be the bad guys, and I accept that. And, there was some tough times during that. So, that was, I think that was to be expected in a way. It was never going to be an easy thing to do.
But like even the infamous Footy Show episode, right, that people click on, and there's Ray Hadley, and he won on points decision because the crowd goes crazy, and it was all sort of the biggest names in the game, and they all had you in the crosshairs. Yeah. Did you know what you were walking into that night?
The vision is about taking the game to the rest of the world. It's about giving the patrons and the fans a better deal than what they've had in the past.
What a load of crap. It's all about pay television, John. It's all about lining people's pockets with money. And for you to sit here and say anything different is just an absolute farce.
It was a panel show. I was there with Chris Johns. We were going to speak, Ken Arthurson and John Quayle. There's 4 of us, just a panel and someone to do the interview. When we got there, we're sitting in the room, getting a bit of makeup and stuff, and you could hear this roar. I go, what's going on here? I said, what's happening out there? Are you cutting a show somewhere? He said, no, that's the show tonight.
That's the Footy Show.
Said, the Footy Show? I'm not on the Footy Show. This is a panel style of the Footy Show. And I had to make a decision. Do we go or do we stay? And I said to Chris at the time, I said, look, I think we're going to do this. We're going to get bashed up out there. And I think my last words to Chris was when we were walking out, I said, I know now how the Christians felt when the Lions were waiting for them. So it was like that.
It had a Colosseum feel.
Woo.
Yeah.
And away we went. So that was a tough night.
I've seen enough greed and enough treachery in the last 2 weeks in this game to last me a lifetime. Here, here.
Thank you.
I don't think I answered the first question, though. I still haven't answered that yet.
I don't think you got much in, to be fair.
It was good. Anyway, it wasn't good, but...
It must have been, I mean, you were portrayed as one of the most hated men in Australian sport, and you were ruining the game that we all know and love. How tough was it for you and your family to cope with around that time?
That was really tough. At the time when you were at my family home was we had security inside the house and outside the house with young children. So that was
security guards in your house?
Inside the house.
Because of threats?
Yeah, threats. So, that wasn't pleasant. That's something you'd never want to take your family through.
How'd you hold your nerve through all that?
Just believing in what we were doing was right. You know, I'd say this to the people that say, why would you do that to a game? Give me an example of a major game that hasn't had disruption. They all do, and you'll have a moment in time where you just got to you've got to rejig things and reset. And I think that was a major reset. But where we are today and where we potentially can head, I think it was probably a skirmish that had to be had, and I think history will prove that.